Did you feel it? Did you feel a change in the season that took place this past weekend, just 24 hours ago? Actually, a little bit more than 24 hours ago, but not that much. There's a definite change that has occurred here in 2023, and the weather made itself at home pretty much throughout the country to let everyone know that football season is heading into the home stretch, and it was a fun day in the NAIA. And you know what, really, as we're going to talk about the top five here in just a moment, the top five performances in the NAIA this weekend, I don't think that there was a lot that was decided necessarily. I don't think that that there were too many things, too many places where there were changes that really took place. There are a couple of things that were decided, but there are still so many teams out there with something to be said or that feel like they have something to say about whether or not they should be playing come late November into the postseason. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams here on Midwest Sportsnet. Already one cough drop tonight, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a two cough drop night. I feel like this is a recovery program. I felt like Friday's live stream was a trying to stay alive stream and made it through all of that. So I appreciate you all following along. We're going to get to the top five tonight, but we're going to go beyond the five to get things started. Please let me know from where you are watching tonight. Be a part of the broadcast and tell us where. I'm at Studio B in the world headquarters of Emerald Quest. Yes, I'm coming to you from Durant, Oklahoma tonight. 33 degrees and sleet. Not going on right now. Jake Redcorn, by the way, I know from where he is originating tonight, East Wichita. It's supposed to get less than 33 where I am right now, but he's celebrating a win that I'm pretty sure he's glad to be back from North Newton. We will talk about that tonight. We'll see if that makes it into the top five, Jake. We'll check on that one. Let's get started here, going beyond the five. And again, let us know from where you're watching. Doane got its first victory of the season. The Tigers no longer with a 0 in the win column, pulling off the victory over Mountain Marty, a 21-20 victory there. Mountain Marty scored the first 20 points. There was a punt block for a TD, return for the touchdown, and Mountain Marty is going up, looked to be 21-0 at that point in time. This is 13-14 left in the first half. Missed extra point, and it was just a 20-point lead at that point in time. Doane then scored field goal, touchdown, field goal, safety, touchdown. They win it 21-20. Big win for Doane, getting the victory for the first time this year. Brendan Knapp with 2 interceptions on the game. Tristan Graff, 9 carries for 116 yards, 1 rushing TD. Have you ever seen that in a game? And I can't tell you how many games I've thought about this in. A number of games that I broadcast where, and it happened already this season once up in Missouri Western, a team misses an extra point, hits the upright, or just something goes wrong. And it just doesn't ever happen that way. And it happens in this. And I'm not saying the missed extra point was necessarily the cause for the loss. It just feels like a sign sometime. So anyway, Doane with a victory in that one. Shout out to Milton watching from sunny Lake Placid. I have to tell you, you may be the only place that is sunny right now. Of course, it is after dark. Excuse me. It is after dark where we are here, but it's definitely not been sunny. Rain, and I think we're scheduled, even down here in southeastern Oklahoma, for a hard freeze tonight. So Grandview 45, Peru State nothing. We expected the Bobcats to run into the buzzsaw that are the Vikings, or that is the Grandview Vikings for that matter, after 4 straight wins. And Grandview put 45 on the board. Still doesn't match their winning total, which is now 48 consecutive regular season games for Grandview. Oh, and by the way, that is now the longest active streak of regular season wins. That means, that's right, it's a game we'll talk about a little bit later on as well. Siena Heights 31, Lawrence Tech 10. Back to Grandview really quickly. 48th consecutive regular season win. Jackson Waring, just a day at the office, 16 for 23 passing, 325 passing yards for Waring, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had 4 carries, 4 rushing yards. Grandview is now check this out. Grandview is now 148-39 all-time in program history. 2 wins from that big 150 milestone. A 791 winning percentage. That's .791 winning percentage. That's second only to Reinhardt at .794. So big victory for Grandview. Now to Siena Heights, 31-10 over Lawrence Tech. Don't forget about the Saints. Ethan Lopresto, he had 28 carries for 128 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. It is his 4th straight 100-plus rushing game. Going over to the chat here really quickly. Louisiana Christian back in the win column, playing for the SAC title against Texas Wesleyan, or maybe a share of that. Thank you, Roger. Dark and chilly in Northeast Indiana. And Roger, I know that I know your team got a win as well. And let's see here really quickly. Oh, yeah. Well, Dave, we'll talk about this game a little bit later on, but it's nice to see you on the broadcast tonight. Great game to watch in the snow. You know, I want to talk about football weather also a little bit too. Something we may bring up a little bit later on. But yeah, what an incredible game. Let's go beyond the 5. Let's stay with this for a moment. Cumberland 62, St. Andrews 10. Yeah, St. Andrews still over on the season. Cumberland's Traylon Shepard, 10 carries, 145 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Concordia 67, Madonna. Just, you know, you almost have to put up there, did not play coach's decision, because there's a big 0 in the points column for Madonna. It goes along with that number that's in the win column as well. Gavin Brooks, back on the positive side, an incredibly efficient 13 for 15 passing, 299 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Big day for Brooks. Seeger DeGainer, 7 catches, 203 yards. 4 receiving touchdowns. Yeah, he got them all. Concordia continues to roll. Marion, 34, Taylor, 20. All of Taylor's points came in the 4th quarter, but Isaiah Gryboskus, I hope I said that right, 12 of 25 passing for 98 yards. But wait, there's more. He had 2 touchdowns, no picks, 19 carries for 69 yards. But wait, there's more. He had 2 receptions, not 1, but 2. He threw 25 passes, had 2 receptions. That's when you're pulling out the bag of tricks right there. And one of them was for a receiving touchdown, responsible for 3 touchdowns on the day. So Isaiah Gryboskus. Well, Taylor comes up short. Marion gets the win in that one. So, Roger, I know that you're excited about the Marion win there, and I didn't want to point that out. Props to Taylor for staying with it. You know, I'm going to say props to me, too. I'm going to stay with it tonight, too. I'm not going to drop out on this one early. But you guys need to pray for me. I'm just going and going. Anyway, Marion with another win. The big game's coming up. The big game is coming up, and that's the one we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. So Marion continuing to roll, a top 5 team. And I know I moved them up another notch this week in my vote in the NAIA F-ball poll. So that'll come out tomorrow. If you watch Corey's channel, that you'll be able to see that media poll there. Marion's looking good. And they're one of those programs, too, that I think the only reason that they're not higher in the poll is because where are you going to put them? I mean, there's something to be said for what Indiana Wesleyan's done. There's something to be said for what Morningside has done prior to this week. And even this week, there's something to be said, obviously, for Grandview, 48 consecutive regular season wins. And there's also the defending national champion. So you have to think about that for Marion. But anyway, it's all going to play itself out in the playoffs a little bit later. Marion pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot. Montana Tech 40, Arizona Christian 31. Really enjoy the broadcast there. Paul and Ron do a great job if you had a chance to see the Ore Diggers broadcast. And how about Lander Smith? 18 carries, 183 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Big day for him. Montana Tech holds off Arizona Christian, gives the Firestorm yet another loss. Lander Smith, a big day. Reinhardt, 45, Union 10. The rule here on the broadcast, we are not picking against Reinhardt again in the regular season. This is a team that's headed for the playoffs, and they do so with a big win over Union. Jordavian Colbert, 13 carries, 122 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Pikeville, 42.31, a combined 5 interceptions. Point was up 24-17 at the end of the 3rd quarter, and Pikeville said that's enough. And the Fighting Lee Kirkland put up 25 points on the board, 4 touchdowns made, only 25 points. Yeah, they made an extra point, missed an extra point, failed on a 2-point conversion, then missed the extra point to follow that. Didn't matter. It was enough there. Kirkland, 33 of 55 passing on the day, 5 passing touchdowns, the 2 picks. And when we're scoring for the top 5, those interceptions count a little bit. So we don't have that up there. Kirkland with a big day. Diego Soto, 7 receptions, 162 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. And Obie Wilson, by the way, had a pick six for 40 yards. That was a big one in this game, a game that was won by only 11. For Obie Wilson, it's his second consecutive game with a pick six. Had a big one, big pick six last week against Bluefield, 56 yards out in that one. Graceland, 49, Clark, 7. We said on Friday on the program that Graceland was not only due a win, we picked them to beat Clark in this one. Didn't know that Cade Ross was going to be back. Cade Ross was back, and back in a big way. 21 of 41 passing, 6 passing touchdowns, had 2 interceptions as well, 8 carries for 45 yards. Graceland gets back in the win column, and deservedly so. Big one in the Heart South. This will go a long way toward determining the automatic playoff from the Heart South, and Benedictine comes away with the win on the road, 30-6 over Baker. Dalton Witherspoon, 24 carries for 158 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Witherspoon's been quietly working and being consistent for Benedictine. Now, if you're a Ravens fan, you're saying hadn't been that quiet to us. He hasn't been getting a lot of national attention. We're going to give him some right here. 4th consecutive 100-plus yard game, 4th in 6 games that he's done this, or 4th 100-plus yard game this season, 4th time in 6 games. He's got 90.3 yards per game. It's 25th in the NAIA, but it's been consistent. Truman Julesgaard, by the way, for Baker, 14 of 24 passing, 129 passing yards, no touchdowns, but he was 14 carries for 159 yards there. But they kept him off the board. Baker was held to just 2 field goals. And this is one of those games, too, you look at it, and it was a wet day in Baldwin. It was a cold, wet day in Baldwin, Kansas. I thought about making a graphic that looked like, a front that just pretty much came through the United States and went through. And if you've seen those fronts on weather maps for years, the little line with the little arrows, that little cold front coming through. Everywhere north of that line was cooler. Most places had some kind of precipitation. Now, of course, you saw some games. If you watched the Morningside Northwestern game, obviously, snow was coming down in just sheets of snow at a time. But it was raining many other places. Ball game that I was at personally, cold, wet, raining. It makes a difference. It makes all the difference in the world. Now, I'm sure the Wildcats are not saying, we're not making any excuses here. But the Benedictine defense did a number on Baker and Julesgaard and held the Wildcats again to just the 2 field goals for the day. Mid-American Nazarene, still an opportunity to make some noise in that Heart South. 1 loss in the South. The game against Benedictine is in 2 weeks. Pioneers 28-21 over Missouri Baptist. Adrian Parsons, 14 for 24, 149 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Also had a rushing touchdown on 10 carries, 28 yards. And Sean Cherry led the way. 21 carries, but they held him to just 41 yards, rushing, 1 touchdown. Evangel, 9-0 on the year. The Valor continue to roll. 17-7. And again, did a number. The defense came out to play. Now, Evangel's defense has come out to play all season long, so this is not a surprise. But they held Tristan Szabo in check, and Evangel had 303 yards of total offense on the day. 99 of it came on 1 drive, and that was a touchdown drive. Let's talk about the defense for Evangel. Clayton Huber, 14 tackles on the day. And normally we'd say, that's a pretty good day. That's a good job. He was 6 tackles off the mark. Bradley Myers, 20 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Nobody scored in the second half. Evangel's 9-0 and have won 10 straight. So props to the Valor. Thanks again for everybody watching tonight, by the way. Please be sure and let us know from where you're watching in the comment section. We'd love to hear from that. St. Xavier 38, St. Ambrose 13. 338 yards of total offense for St. Xavier. 288 of it came on the pass. Stuart Ross, I don't believe he's related to Cade Ross. Doesn't matter. Another Ross doing a great job at quarterback. 27 for 33 passing, 288 yards, 81% completion rate, 5 touchdowns, had an interception as well. Justin Pringle on offense, 8 receptions, 156 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Ronnie Foster, 6 receptions, 2 receiving touchdowns for him. Montana Western, 44. We have the Bulldogs, by the way, in our top 20 easily. Montana State Northern, nothing. Bulldogs, 527 yards of total offense. And they gave up a negative 37 rushing yards. That's a school record. Held the lights. They turned the lights off, I guess is how you could say that. At least in the ground game. I save up the puns every now and again. So, I need a rim shot, I guess. I don't know. We'll work on that. It's not in the budget right now. Michael Palandri continuing to roll as the quarterback this season. And if you were wondering what was going to happen after John Junn, Palandri has stepped in and said, hey, man, I've got this. 17 for 29 passing, 295 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no picks. Eli Norse, how about this? 11 receptions, 142 yards receiving, had a receiving touchdown, 4 punt returns, and returned one of them for 60 yards and a touchdown. He's picking up 113.6 receiving yards per game. That leads the NAIA. And he also has 10 receiving touchdowns for the season. That's 7th in the NAIA. Tied for that. Here's the big one coming up. Montana Western at Carroll next week. Now, this is part of why I was saying earlier on, I don't think a lot's been decided. I really don't. I mean, it's another win, but the bigger games are happening. The Marion Indiana Wesleyan game, that's coming up. Montana Western at Carroll, that's coming up next week. How about this one? OUAZ 68, Langston 27. OUAZ's already played Texas Wesleyan this year, had a loss. OUAZ's already played Louisiana Christian this year, got the win in that one. Those two teams are playing in 2 weeks. Spirit take care of business against Langston and blew it open in the second half. 45-7, 2 pick sixes. OUAZ is off next week and then hosting Panhandle State the final week of the season. So really, the Spirit kind of waiting to see what happens in Fort Worth. That's a couple weeks away. Sorry, still on the first cough drop tonight. We're going to make it through. Dort 49. And we're almost to the top 5, by the way. If you're new to the program, again, please let us know from where you are watching tonight. We love that. Thanks to Jake, by the way, for being a part of the broadcast. Always great to get to see Jake's name come up there and visit about football. The game he wants to hear about is about, I want to go about 8 games away. Stay with me, Jake. I know you will. Dort 49, Briarcliff, nothing. Dort, again on defense, shutting out its opponent. Not done with this season yet. I know it's all about Morningside and Northwestern, which we'll talk about, but the Defender's still making a statement for its playoff spot. And again, let's go back. So many teams just need to keep winning, and Dort just keeps winning. Defenders putting 7 touchdowns on the board. Nick Wellen, 13 carries, 158 yards rushing, a rushing touchdown. Brandon Piper, 14 carries, 120 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Caden Harkin, 1 carry for 80 yards, a touchdown. 2 receptions for 38 yards, one of them a touchdown. When you touch the ball 3 times and 2 of them for touchdowns, it's a pretty good day. Jessup Leakey with a 40-yard pick 6. Colson Queering with a 30-yard pick 6. Dort on defense scores 12 points and shuts out Briarcliff. When the defense scores more points than the other team, you know you're doing a pretty good job. Midland, 39. Concordia, 37. Final in 2 overtimes. Concordia's DJ McGarvey. We talked about him at the start of the year, and he continues to make noise, and he's having a great season. It's just not showing up in the win-loss column. 19 for 47 passing, but for 313 yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. The Midland defense taking over. How about Midland on offense, though? Tyson Dinkert, 31 carries, 215 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 reception for 9 yards, and had a 91-yard kickoff return for a touchdown as well. That was all in the first half. In the second half, it was Kalen Coates, 2 carries for 12 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, had the game-winning touchdown in second overtime, also had 3 receptions for 78 yards as well. And it comes down to getting 2-point conversions in the second overtime. Midland got it done on the touchdown. Concordia couldn't quite get it done. Cumberland's 41, Campbellsville 38. And by the way, we're getting to the top 5 here in just a moment. We're going beyond the 5 now. If you're new to the program, we try to touch base on a lot of things that are happening. We won't get every single game of the 47, I think, games on the NAIA docket, but we're going to get quite a few, including this one. Campbellsville gets on the board first, then Cumberland with 24 straight points in the first quarter and just held on to the lead. And you look here, Jagger Gillis for Campbellsville. Great quarterback, having a fantastic season. 33 passes completed out of 48 attempted, 382 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, but the 3 interceptions. And that's really what makes the difference in this one. Oh, and he lost a fumble as well. Gillis, again, 382 passing yards, but of those 3 interceptions, 2 of them resulted in points on the turnover. One of them was a pick six, and the lost fumble resulted in points. And so it's the turnovers that made all the difference for Campbellsville in that Cumberland's comes away with a big victory. Georgetown 10, Lindsey Wilson nothing. This was supposed to be an offensive blowout. What happened? The defenses came to play. The offenses were held in check. Now, again, football weather could have made a difference in all of this. Garrick Slunacker to Dylan Warren, a 41-yard touchdown with 11:33 in the second quarter. That was the game winner. Lindsey Wilson shut out. The Chris Oliver Bowl goes to Chris Oliver's current team. And when Lindsey Wilson, responded, by the way, right after that touchdown, but Georgetown's defense comes through with an interception in the end zone, and that was all that was there. 2 more wins for Georgetown. It's really what Georgetown needs at this point in time. And they're at Cumberland's and versus Campbellsville. So if you're scheduling and you're a Georgetown fan, final game of the season is going to be at home against Campbellsville. Could be, in essence, for a playoff spot. I think it will be for a playoff spot. We're not giving that spot to Georgetown just yet, but my goodness, they've earned it. Alexander, watching from Park City, Utah. Thanks for watching. Go Knights, who, by the way, are not located in Park City, Utah, but obviously a fan. So, yeah, we talked about Marion a little bit earlier. They did get the big victory over Taylor in that one. Let's go to the Sun Conference for a moment and talk about 3 teams that still have an opportunity to make a statement and get into the playoffs, which means obviously none of these 3 teams were yet in the top 5. But Jaden Meisinger, 15 carries for 109 yards, 3 touchdowns. His 14 rushing touchdowns are good enough for 3rd in the NAI. Kaiser, 54. Ave Maria, 7. Brian Steinke had a touchdown, the only touchdown, but he was held to just 145 yards rushing, and that was half of his average coming in. Or not half, but a little. It was about 75% of his average coming in. So the defense holds on. Bryce Beasley, 13 for 15 passing, 260 yards. That is effective passing. When you're completing 87% of your passes, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks, Kaiser is now 6-2 and 5-0 in the Sun Conference. They hold their own destiny in check. Kaiser looking to make a trip back to the playoffs, and this is the defending national runners-up. So a lot to be said there. Florida Memorial trying to get into the playoffs. 35-24, a victory over Southeastern. Southeastern was up 24-20 going into the fourth quarter. Florida Memorial with 15 points there, and the defense then shut down Southeastern. When the Fire was trying to get back into it, the Lions defense had an interception and then forced a turnover on downs. Offense come through when it needs to. Defense holds on when it needs to. Sedquan Smith on the day, 24 of 33 passing, 204 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He was picked off once as well. 3 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. Smith responsible for 5 touchdowns on the day. Florida Memorial 5-3 overall, 4-1 in Sun Conference play. The big game is coming up in 2 weeks when Florida Memorial hosts Kaiser. That's on November 11th. One more team from the Sun Conference trying to make some noise and get into the playoffs. It's a team that has been almost inexcusably left out of the playoffs in each of the last 2 years with a 9-2 record. They're not going to have a 9-2 regular season record this year because they already have 3 losses on the season. St. Thomas, 6-3 overall. But what a statement with the win over Warner. 73-12. This is the second consecutive game in which the Bobcats have put 73 points on the board. Rontavious Farmer, 16 carries, 217 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. He averages 121.3 rushing yards per game. That's fourth in the NAIA. 13th rushing touchdown. Well, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th yesterday. Tied for fourth in the NAIA there. St. Thomas is now 6-3 overall, 4-1 in the Sun Conference. St. Thomas really is probably waiting to see what's going to happen with the Kaiser Florida Memorial game. However, it still just needs to win. Get those last 2 wins of the season. Put up an 8-3 record. And get in the top 25 of the NAIA ranking, not rating, because that's going to be what really determines how this all goes on. And St. Thomas has really, I think, kept and held its own with the voters in the NAIA ranking. So we'll see how that goes out. The NAIA F-ball poll doesn't make a difference. I wish it did. I wish we did have some kind of say in that, but it doesn't. All right, 2 more games outside the top 5 performances, and we're not to the 30-minute mark yet in the show. Thanks for sticking around, everyone, tonight. Let's talk about the game Jake Redcorn wants to talk about. 20, well, not 20 degrees, 43-0. 43-0 the score. Friends over Bethel in North Newton, Kansas. It was the Terry Harrison Bowl. And you know what? They decided they're not even going to play all of it. I know it wasn't really all about that. A 2-hour lightning delay before the game even got started. The rain was coming down, the lightning. It was an electric atmosphere, if you will, in North Newton, Kansas. Yes, that one was free. And so they waited a little while to get things started. Rain coming down, pooling up out on the field. It was a challenging place, I'm sure, to play a game. And you have to think about this for a moment. These are 2 teams that run the ball. I mean, they not only predominantly run the ball, they will run the ball to the point where they don't even throw a pass. In fact, neither team threw a pass in this game. I know. I checked that one out on your own too. There was more than one person checking this one out, not only yesterday, but today to make sure that box score was right. No passes thrown by either team. 292 yards of total offense, which means 292 yards of rushing offense, put up on the board by Friends. 84 yards. That was all that Bethel got at home in the rain against a very, very tough defense. No score in the first quarter, 19-0 in the second quarter. Friends on top. Third quarter, the Falcons put 24 more points on the board. And with more rain and lightning, it was decided it was going to be called with about 90 seconds left in the third quarter. It goes down as a 43-0 win for Friends. And the Terry Harrison Bowl, which went to Bethel last year, goes to Friends this year. Friends, even with a loss in the Kessinger division, has just 2 losses in the regular season right now. I think this is a Falcons team that still can make some noise with 2 more wins. Now, you've got to get inside that NAIA ranking, not rating. You have to. Because even though the conference championship or conference champions this year are going, whether or not they're in the top 25 of the poll, the at-large bids are going to have to be in that top 25. And with the adjustments to the playoffs, which if you're not familiar, they were 16 teams prior to this year. 20 teams are going to make it this year. Room for 4 more teams in the playoffs this year. It's big. So many teams, I think, can and have really made statements to the fact that they should be in the playoffs this year. However, they're only taking 20. So that means 13 conference champions, 7 at-large bids. Those at-large teams are going to have to be in the top 20. Right now, in the NAIA ranking poll, Friends is number 26. The Falcons are receiving votes. So that may change between last week and this week. I would think it probably would, because Bethel's a very good team. Friends beat them at home and beat them well. So we'll see. Cavante Baker, 10 carries, 48 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Bethel's quarterback, DJ Sears, 18 carries. And this may be the statement stat. Sears, who has led the NAIA in rushing touchdowns and who has been one at the top. He came into this game 4th in the NAIA in rushing yards, 18 carries for 1 net yard. And that's got to be the statement stat of the entire game. By the way, a couple more players for each of these 2 teams. Friends with Lakin Cloudus, 9 carries, 76 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Friends also had Cooper Skrobecki with 8 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss. And for Bethel, Caden Christensen led the way on the ground, 4 carries, 62 rushing yards. But it was all Falcons all the time in this one. So there you go. Pretty close, by the way, to making it in the top 5. One more that didn't make it in the top 5. Let's stay in the KCAC for this one. Sterling 33, St. Mary 30. And it's a rare thing when I have a player whose team didn't win make it in the top 5. And Jartavius Martin was so close to being in the top 5. 28 carries, 331 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, even had a reception for 21 yards. Let's go back and read that number again. 331 rushing yards on the game. We picked the Spires in this one, by the way, on Friday. I went back and watched that broadcast just to make sure I stayed awake and conscious for it. I was struggling with that virus so bad. But St. Mary didn't win. Now, they didn't quit either, but they put themselves in such a bad place all game long. Sterling, the Warriors just had to take this one. St. Mary had 13 penalties for 134 yards, and they were bad ones. You had an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after a touchdown. This allows Sterling to get in great position after a kickoff. They score a touchdown after that, so basically it's points off turnover. A personal foul after they get an interception, then they commit a personal foul, puts themselves in bad field position, and they get only a field goal opportunity and miss that. They also had a missed point after. And so it basically comes down for St. Mary, it was a missed opportunity. So there you go. I would love to give an also ran to Jartavius Martin, 331 rushing yards. I could be wrong on this one. I think that is the high for this season for a single game. So if someone knows that, I'd love to hear if that's right or wrong. Let's go now to the top 5. And we will put this on the board. Let you take a moment to see what you think about this. All right, there's your time. Top 5 performances for week 9. The first one, the big game in the snow. Northwestern 34, Morningside 20. We felt like that Coach Steve Ryan would use Lennox Brown in a situation where he needed to run the ball. There really wasn't a lot that you look at and say, this is going to be a game in which the ball is thrown quite a bit. It was thrown more than I thought it was. Brown was 8 for 17 passing. He threw 17 passes in this game. Now, completed only 8 of them for 78 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions as well. But Brown on the ground, 19 carries for 99 yards, had 1 rushing touchdown. This game went back and forth until the fourth quarter when Northwestern pulled away a little bit. Morningside, a big effort, but it was just more Northwestern at home. And Jalen Gramstad led the way. 15 rushes, or 15 carries, excuse me. I'll get this right. We'll go back. I don't have a sponsorship from this cough drop company, but I tell you, I would be a poster boy for this cough drop company if we ever get a sponsorship, because I'm telling you, they get the job done. Let's try it again. Jalen Gramstad, 15 completions of 24 passes thrown, 234 yards through the air. Shocked, absolutely shocked. 2 passing touchdowns, was picked off once. He also ran the ball 21 times for 146 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. He was responsible for 3 touchdowns on the day. I know there have been some other players that have had bigger numbers of touchdowns responsible for, but Gramstad was responsible for 378 yards of total offense. What an effort. Led the way. Absolutely. Connor McQuillan, by the way, 16 carries, 86 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 6 catches for 60 yards, too. Michael Story, Austin Girard, each had a receiving touchdown. But Northwestern stopped the streak from Morningside. And I know that Dave and Dale and anyone else that might happen to be watching tonight, I have promoted the Mustangs for a long, long time. The regular season win streak went to 75, and that's where it stops on Saturday. Northwestern with a big regular season win. First time since 2013 that the Red Raiders had beaten the Mustangs. Oh, by the way, Morningside did something as well. Took care of the ball. I mentioned that Brown had no interceptions. This stopped a streak for Northwestern for the defense for the Red Raiders of forcing a turnover. It had been 26 games in a row coming into this. That didn't happen. Props again to the effort from the Mustangs. It's a 14-point win. That may be a little bit misleading as Northwestern got an insurance touchdown within the last minute and a half, made it a 14-point game. It was tight all the way through. Big game. One of the best games of the season, no doubt. An instant classic in the snow, and Northwestern now has 22 straight wins. Indiana Wesleyan, 52. St. Francis, 21. The last 3 games of the season for Indiana Wesleyan are really where it's going to make a difference for this Wildcat team. This is a team that made it to the national semifinals last year. It's a team that is rolling under new coach Andrew Rohde, doing its job. Big win over St. Francis. With Concordia and Marion still to come, needed to get a win over St. Francis, which is still a strong team, very strong team. It's not been getting the numbers up that the other 3 have in the Mideast yet this year, but still a strong team. Big win for Indiana Wesleyan. This game was called with 6 minutes left in the game with weather. Didn't matter. 31-point contest. Xander Stokes leads the way again. 18 for 29 passing, 305 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, was picked off 1 time. Also 5 carries for 16 yards and a rushing touchdown. Responsible for 5 touchdowns on the day. But wait, there's more. Isaac Smith caught 3 of those touchdown passes. He had 10 receptions for 233 yards. That is a school record. So good job, Isaac Smith. 233 yards receiving. How about another school record? 3 interceptions. Neil Campbell did that. 4 tackles, 3 picks on the day. Big day for the Wildcats, who are continuing to be undefeated. 2 big games left on the schedule. We'll be following Indiana Wesleyan in that. So keep that in mind. All right. Where is that? I'm going to go ahead and stop for a second because that got erased off of my list. I had this on here. Casey, I'm glad you put that up there. We're going to stop off the top 5 for just a second because we picked Ottawa with the win on Friday on the show, and we said that Winton Ruth would be responsible. Ruth had 264 yards rushing on 26 carries and 4 touchdowns for the real OU. Really? With the win over Avila, the Braves go 3-0 in division play, and a win over Kansas Wesleyan next week, and OU's in the playoffs. You know what? That's a very good point, and I don't know why this is not on my notes because it was on my notes, and I'm gonna. Well, I'd like to fire the person that put the notes together, but then we wouldn't have a staff. So I can't do that. But I'm really glad that you told me that, Casey, because I was wanting to talk about Winton Ruth in this one, and he was going to be near the end of the Beyond the 5. So I'm going to keep that up there for just a little bit. 26 carries, 268 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Ottawa, by the way, could make the playoffs with a 7-4 record. And it looks like that they might, but still, Braves have to get 2 more wins there. The real OU? Really? Okay. Anyway. I live in Oklahoma. So I've heard there's only one. Although I am an OSU alum. So this coming weekend, I'll let you go ahead and say the real OU there because I'll be cheering for the Cowboys in that and see if Gundy can make something happen in the spinal bedlam for the foreseeable future. All right, back to NAIA. College of Idaho, 42. Eastern Oregon, 38. If you've seen Andy Peters' name in here before, you're right. Because he was here last week and he was here the week before that. College of Idaho continues to roll, holding off a very pesky Eastern Oregon team, 42-38. Andy Peters, 16 for 27 passing, 219 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Also had 14 carries for 101 yards rushing. He had 101 yards rushing as well in this. By the way, he is now the single season and single game leader in touchdown passes, the 5 touchdown passes, a single game record. And I'm trying to say, I want to say 14 or 15 for the season. We'll come back. We'll correct it on Thursday if I'm wrong. Brock Richardson, 8 receptions, 83 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. John Schofield, 4 receptions, 87 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. For Eastern Oregon, by the way, props to Quincy Glasper because he kept this team in it and really put him on his back. 27 for 40 passing, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 5 carries for 20 yards as well. First, Panhandle State Aggie to make the top 5 board, and Brandon Stevens does it in a big, big way. 57-0, they defeated North American. No score in the first quarter, and then Panhandle State with 3 scores in the second, 3 scores in the third, 3 scores in the fourth. Brandon Stevens, 13 for 16 passing. Not bad. 266 yards through the air, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and 9 carries for 35 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. He had six touchdowns he was responsible for. By the way, there were a couple of pick sixes too. Desmond Green from 26 yards out, William Rodriguez from 73 yards out. It's senior day next week for Panhandle State against Sagu. 6 touchdowns for Brandon Stevens. Just wanted you to remember that number for a moment because it's still too short of what we saw as our big, big performance of the day. Bethel, 62. Faulkner, 0. The Fighting John Coopers didn't have much fight in them in this one. The Wildcats come through in a big way. And how about Joaquin Collazo III? 28 for 36 passing, 385 passing yards, 77% completion on the day. In a day which the Wildcats put up 62 points. He doesn't have to be that effective. He was. 8 passing touchdowns, had the 1 pick. We're going to overlook the 1 pick because he had 8 passing touchdowns. Get the right. There we go. I want you to see that right. There we go. Not that I couldn't count. This is the easier way to count to 8. My grandson showed me this one this morning. I knew it anyway, but I was just letting you know he showed me this one this morning. 8 passing touchdowns. An amazing effort from Joaquin Collazo. Jalen Taylor caught 2 of those touchdown passes. He had 14 catches for 227 yards receiving. Big, big effort for Taylor to have that kind of day. J.D. Dixon, 3 of those touchdown receptions, had 5 catches for 37 yards receiving. Collazo threw touchdowns to Jalen Taylor, Avant Burris, J.D. Dixon, Tyrell Partee, and Will Secker. Just in case you wanted to know, the NAIA record for touchdowns thrown by a single quarterback in a single game is 10. Collazo got 8. Big, big performance. Bethel. What can I say? All the Wildcats need to do is keep winning games. They will be in the playoffs this year. We talked about this before. We'll say it again, I'm sure, a couple more times. Bethel went undefeated through the regular season last year, lost in the first round of the playoffs. They already have a loss this year. They've gotten that out of their system, and so the Wildcats are putting themselves in a position to make some noise. So, first off, I just want to say thanks to everyone for watching again. Please continue to watch. Casey, thank you so much for your note because it somehow got erased off mine, and I didn't want to forget Winton Ruth and what he did. We will be back on here on Thursday night to preview Week 10. We're also going to talk about playoff possibilities and potential teams to make it to the NAIA playoffs in the expanded playoffs this year. And I am hoping that by that time, this virus will be completely gone, that I'll have my voice back, that we can go down from 2 cough drops in a show to just 1 and maybe none. And I look forward to getting to see all of you again. So thank you for being a part of Midwest Sportsnet. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And please continue to watch the videos here. It goes a long way toward helping to grow the channel. We're doing what we can. We're monetized, partially monetized now. So if you want to support it, that would be great. And we're just enjoying it. We're having a good time. We do more than football, but you know what? It's football season. So we're talking football right now. We'll be talking some volleyball also as the volleyball playoffs are coming up very, very soon. But football possibilities this week, as well as our regular Thursday live stream Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern It'll be Eastern Daylight for one more week, and 8 p.m. Central Daylight, and then 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight, wherever you happen to be watching. So please come on. Please be a part of the show. And just, we enjoy having you. So I'm Joey McWilliams. Thanks to all of you. I want to mention all the names, but they're getting to be a lot more. And so I enjoy that too. For all of you for watching, thanks for being a part. I appreciate you. Stay warm. It is football weather now. And you know what? We didn't talk about that. I think it warrants mention on Thursday night. So stay warm, stay inside. God bless you all, and have a great, great night.